All right, hello everyone. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I have been talking some JavaScript and jQuery with you. And what I've done in this example, this will be the final example that I go through, is first I wanted you to see that I did go back and I put in a lot of comments to my JavaScript program. And I think I've mentioned this to you before, but I'm going to say it again, and that is you should really comment while you're writing the program, not afterwards as I did. So I broke my own rule. A couple things I wanted to mention to you. We have just one variable here that we've got at the top of our program, a flag called isValid. Remember that for when we look at the jQuery example in a minute. We've got our shortcut for using document.getElementById. Our process entries is kind of working like a main or like a driver in that it's calling validate first name, validate last name, validate address, validate city, validate zip code, validate email, validate phone number. Again, we don't have to validate the state because it's in a drop-down list. The more options that you provide the user with things like drop-downs, the better you are as far as not having to write validation code. If it was valid, you just came down and write all fields validated, form submitted. All right, and as far as the different routines, okay, we grab the value from the first name field, we checked, and if it was empty or undefined, we print a message off at the side and set our flag to false. Otherwise, we just set the value next to it to nothing. Then we did the same exact thing. In fact, this is the same exact routine that you saw for the last name, except it's been changed to first name. Once again, this is the same exact routine, but you've changed it from first name to last name to address. And then finally, you change it from first name to last name to address to city. So these are all the same routine, basically. Then we got into a little bit more depth as far as our checks, because notice what I did here. I said zip is equal to that value, but then we've got a pattern here which says that the zip code can either be 5 digits or 5 digits followed by a hyphen followed by 4 digits. That's the only one. Then we test that pattern that we've just set up on our zip code field. But this is the same as what we saw before. If it's empty or undefined, okay, but now we've got to make another check. If this else is true, that means that there was something put into the zip code field, but it did not meet the criteria. Either it was non-numeric, or it didn't have a hyphen, or it had too many, or too few digits, or whatever. So we've got one field, a value here that says zip code is required, whereas these all say first name is required, last name is required, address is required, city is required, zip code is required. But now we've got this. Zip code must be, the best thing you can do when you're setting up something for a user is to be as explicit as you possibly can when you're putting out error messages so they know what it is they've done wrong. And again, if neither of those are true, then everything was cool. Email is very similar, except I've got a different pattern. I think I said that on the tape. I went online and Googled regular expression pattern email, and I found one for JavaScript. You can see it's not short. It's very hard to come up with an email pattern that meets all the different types of emails that are possible. But after we do that, it's the same basically as the zip code. If it's empty, you have a required. Otherwise, and notice here, I didn't know what to write, so I just wrote malformed email. Otherwise, it's okay. Phone number, very similar to what we did for the zip code. We've got another pattern. We're asking for 3 digits, a hyphen, 3 digits, a hyphen, and 4 digits. We again test that pattern. If the pattern is empty, or if the phone number was left empty or undefined, we give the one message. Otherwise, we give the other message. If it's not empty, and if it meets the criteria, we set it to nothing. This set our error fields back to just the words required field. And this routine right here that you see is called literally from our contact field. I don't think that's the right one. There it is. From our contact field, and what we're saying is when you get done with all the reset natural stuff, then call fill spans. All right, and I believe that's pretty much everything that was in there. Yep. So to show you real quick, you see every field in here is required. Let me shrink the size down a tad. We submit. Oh, come on. You have to take my word for it that it worked. I don't know what's going on right here, but it did work. Okay? And the reset sets it back again. All right, let me go back or go on to the example, the last example, which is our jQuery example. Okay? The changes that got made in here to our contact file was I went in and I'm not sure if I had to do this or not, but I thought it was better. Since I have separate errors for each one of these, I made a different span, and each one, although they all adhere to the error class, each one has a different ID. So FNAME span, LNAME span, ADDR span, city span, nothing for the state again, zip span, email span, and phone span. All right? Then in here, what I ended up doing in the jQuery is I ended up having 7 different flags. Valid first name flag, valid last name flag, valid address flag, valid city flag, valid zip code flag, valid email flag, and valid phone flag. All right. This I tried to keep as true to what we had there before. So this is basically the same as what we had in the JavaScript version. All right. Then the only way, if the valid flag is still set to true, I should say if the valid flags are still set to true, then we gave the alert. So what changed in here? Well, if the stuff was bad, I returned false. Otherwise, I returned true. I'm still doing the same stuff I did before, but I'm either returning false or returning true. And you'll notice I set those flags equal to the return value in each case. So other than that, that's the same for the first name validation, the last name validation, the address validation, the city validation. All right. The zip is the same, except again, we're returning false if we have either nothing in there or it's out of, it's in a wrong format. Otherwise, we set that equal, boom, and we hit set equal to true. One thing that I still get a little perplexed over is when to use text here and when to use val. All right? And the main difference between those is that text only shows or sets the text. Val only shows or sets text plus any HTML. But it worked much better when I just used text on all of these. All right, so you see how everything got reset to text. The other thing is this didn't work for a while because I had to remember that when I'm doing this, that this stuff is all based off of selectors. So I had to add the pound sign there. I originally had it off and it didn't work. I had to add the pound sign here for each one. And anywhere I used the span, I had to use the pound sign, etc. So let's run this and see if it runs a little better than the last one did. Submit. There's my errors. I guess it doesn't really read all that well. Let me make it a little bigger so you can see it. All right, probably could have used a better color, but red is kind of the unofficial error color. Okay, submit. Oh my goodness, this all worked just fine when I did it yesterday. So I'm not sure what's going on. The contact worked. It all works. You'll have to take my word for it. I'm not sure what's going on. Everything worked just fine last night. Doesn't now. All right. So that pretty much gets us to the end of where I wanted to go here. When I come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we could make some minor changes here and start to incorporate some bootstrap. Now, bootstrap is an interesting animal for many reasons, and we'll talk about some of those when I come back in just a couple minutes.